What is up people, this is Vishal and I'm back again with another video, and in this one we'll be writing polyfills for array.map, filter and reduce. But before we get started, about 61% of you have still not subscribed to the channel, so let's try to bring that number down to at least 50%. So hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell to get notified about my videos whenever I upload them. Now without wasting any further time, let's jump into the video. Before we write our polyfills, let's first understand what are higher order functions. So looking at the screen now, I have a function over here called copy and multiply by 2. It's a very simple function. It takes an input of an array, multiplies all its elements by 2 and stores them inside a new array and returns the value, right? So now imagine a scenario that I need another function which does copy and divide by 2. Right, so I will have to create a new function and change the operation over here to divide, and this becomes copy and divide by 2. Okay, now the problem over here is just look at the differences between these two functions. There's only the operation difference, nothing else changes. So we are basically violating a principle of programming, which is try, do not repeat yourself. So we are repeating ourselves over here. We are redeclaring all the variables. We are again writing the while loop. Now that's a bit repetitive, right? So we are for each operation, we are going on creating these set of variables, again a loop, and doing all those operations, right? So how do we solve this problem? Now to solve this problem, what we can do is we will pass a callback function over here. Okay, and let me just get rid of this function. So the only thing that changes over here is we take the callback function in as the parameter. We will change the name of our function to manipulate. Okay, copy and manipulate, and the operation now is something which will be handled by my callback, right? So we will write callback and we will just pass our array value to that particular callback. Now it's the responsibility of the callback to do those operations. So my callbacks would look somewhat like this. So it will be multiply by 2 equal to blah. Let me just repeat this, and it will be divide by 2. And now both of these functions will be very small. These will be val into 2. Of course for this one it will be divide. So that's the only thing that we need to do, and whenever we want to perform any operations on all the elements on the array, we will just pass in our callback. That is, we will just pass in copy and manipulate our array, and I'll just pass in my multiply by 2 or divide by 2 to handle the operation, right? So in this case, this copy and manipulate function is called the higher order function because it is making sure that we are not repeating ourselves, first thing, and second, it is making our code a little more readable. We are just making one function and passing all these small operation based functions to my copy and manipulate function, right? Now all these functions, the .map, .filter and .reduce, these are all higher order functions because as you can see in my component, I am basically using .map, .filter and .reduce, right? So all they do is take a callback. They are taking a callback and doing some operations and returning a result, right? So all these functions are higher order functions. Now what we have written over here is already a polyfill for map, right? So it does the same thing what map does. So map is basically looping over all the elements and doing some operation, and that particular result is returned. The new array is returned over here, and this particular function also does the same thing. But we will rewrite this function because we want to follow the syntax that is there on the MDN. Now looking at the syntax of map, it can take an arrow function as a callback, it can take a callback function definition as a callback, or it can take a inline function, right? So for this particular video, I'm going to use this particular syntax for my polyfills, and notice that this arg, so there is another argument to this map function. First thing, it takes a callback. Second thing, it takes a this arg. Now what is this arg? So by the definition, it says value use as this when executing the callback function. What this means is, if you look at my implementation in my component, in my array.map, I'm passing this arg as an object that is holding a value as data 10, right? And in my callback function, I'm doing this dot data. So this dot data, if I pass this arg, this dot data will now be able to reference this particular value that is being passed. So that is the meaning of this arg. Basically, my callback function will receive the scope of this. So this is what I'm going to demonstrate in .map. Of course, so this arg is something which is there in filter and reduce as well, but for simplicity, just for the sake of your understanding, I would only implement it in map, and you'll get the idea how it happens in the other polyfills. Now, so before writing our polyfills, let's quickly look at the output of this code that I've written over here. So my server is already running. We will go to our playground, hit a refresh, and this input is going to take an array. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on blur, it is going to basically show me the result of map. So the map is showing 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. The filter is showing 2 and 4. So the reason why map is returning me 20, 40, 60 and all those things is because I'm passing this dot data as this arg as the reference. So whatever the data into 2 is there, into 10 is something additional that we're doing using this arg. Okay. So that's what is happening over here. So these are the default functions that are there in my array. So .map, .filter, and .reduce. In filter, we are just doing val module 2 equal to 0, which means we are just trying to find filter out all the even elements, right? So that's what we are getting in the result. So 2 and 4 are even, that's what we are getting over here. And reduce is just sum of all elements in the array. So these are n natural numbers, so n into n plus 1 by 2, that would be 5 into 6 by 2, that is 3 into 5, that is 15. Okay, so this is my result that we are going to see on using .map, .filter, and .reduce. Now when I write my polyfills, I want to follow the similar syntax. The only thing that I want to change over here is, instead of .map, I'll use .mymap, .myfilter, .myreduce. Okay, so that's how we'll be writing our polyfills. Of course, this is also a polyfill, but we will try to keep the syntax as simple as possible and as similar as possible. Okay, so let's just keep this function and write our polyfills inside our array. So to write my map polyfill, we will write array dot prototype dot mymap, equal to, we will use a function keyword. Okay, so you can use an arrow function as well, but since we are using this arg and we want the reference of this, so we'll use a plain old function. Okay, so we have a function over here, and according to the syntax of map, it requires a callback and this arg, right? So we will take callback. We will not be lazy, we will write the entire callback instead of cb, and we will write this arg. Okay, now what we need to do over here is, everything that we have written over here is going to be the same for map, right? So we will just copy all these things over here and place it here. I'll get rid of this particular function now. Okay, now there are some references errors over here. Now there is one thing to understand over here. How we are calling our map is by using array.map. So whatever the value, that is sanitized input, is there, we are doing .map on that sanitized input. So the map function, the scope of this is going to be this particular array. So whenever I write this inside my map function, it is going to point to this particular array. So that's what we are going to do inside my map as well. So what I'll do now is, I'll just use this, and that would give me the length, this of index, and this would be callback. Okay, now this particular thing, what we have written over here, will work fine, but notice that we have not used our this arg yet. So my code is not yet complete. So to implement this arg, so basically my callback functions, this has to reference to this particular argument that we are passing over here. So this inside my callback function should be referenced. So to do that, we will use .call. Okay, so the people who are not aware of .call, just click on the suggestion box, go check out my video on polyfills for .bind, call and apply, and you'll understand what this call is all about. Okay, for this particular video I'll not explain the details, just look at the syntax. So we are just doing function .call, and to provide the scope to my function I'll just pass in the first argument as this arg, and rest of my arguments that I need in my callback function are element, index and array. So all of them can be passed as the arguments of this call function in the same order. So this of index will become the element. The next we need is index, and the last one we need is the array itself, right? So this is what I'm going to do. Note, and also one more thing that I want to point out over here is you can use .apply as well, but the reason why I'm not using .apply is because I'll have to pass my arguments as an array, and this will require creation of a new array, and it seems unnecessary for this case because all my arguments are individually separated. If they were in an array, I would directly use .apply. Okay, so looking at this particular code, I think my map polyfill is ready, and we will soon try to execute and see the result as well. But one more thing that I want to point out is whenever someone in the interview asks you this question, and until and unless they tell you that they want a recursive solution, you can go on writing this particular example. But if they are specifically asking for a recursive solution, understand that this particular syntax cannot be achieved by recursive solution. Okay, so you will have to use a simple while loop or a for loop to reach this. Okay, all right, now moving on, we just need to implement this. So I'll just quickly build my script. So once my build is ready, all I need to do is go to my component. I have already imported all the polyfills that I write inside my arrays. Okay, so all I need to do is just update my handle blur function, and instead of map, I'll now use my map. Okay, so everything is same. The only change that I've done is my map. It is receiving the callback. It is receiving this arg. Now we just need to check whether the result is same or not. So let's go to our code. Just take the input, and on blur you can see the result is still the same. So my map polyfill is working perfectly fine. Okay, now so my map, quite simple. We were easily able to implement this, and now we will proceed with writing the polyfills for my filter. Okay, so again same thing, array dot prototype dot my filter. Okay, so we'll again take a function, and the filter will also have the same callback and this arg. Okay, so I'll not be demonstrating this arg for this particular example, but it would work the same way that like it works in the map. Okay, so let's go ahead and first see what filter is all about, what it is doing, and then we will see how to write the polyfill. So what filter is doing, whatever the callback is provided, whatever the return value, if it is true, then that particular element will be pushed to the filter result, right? So that's the operation that's the operation of array.filter. So if the return value of the callback is true, then it gets pushed to the result, or else it will just skip that value. So we need to do the same thing over here as well. So some things will stay common over here, which is my loop. Okay, so we'll just copy this, and inside my loop, of course I need to return the result as well, because .filter returns a filtered array. So once the filter results are ready, I have my while loop which says index less than length, everything is fine over here. Now based on what is the return value of callback, we need to decide whether that element needs to be pushed to the result or not. So we'll put a if condition over here. We'll do callback dot call again. So again the callback dot call will allow me to reference this dot arg. Okay, so we'll pass this arg, and the syntax for filter, reduce, all of them I mean for filter as well is this. Okay, for reduce it's a little different, but for filter it is going to stay this thing. So we just need to pass our arguments, that is element, index and array. So the way I'll get my element is by this of index. We need to pass our index as well, and we need to pass our array itself. So this will be the syntax. Okay, so now we are for passing the callback function. If it is returning a true response, that time we need to push that particular value inside my result. So we will just write result.push, and we will pass in our this of index. So the new element is now pushed inside my result. Of course, we have not incremented the value, so we'll write this, and the increment is working fine now. Okay, so I think this should also work now. So let's go ahead, build our script again, and go to our component. Now we are ready to replace this with my filter. Okay, so all we need to do is get rid of this, and it should work fine now. So let's go to our browser again, enter the same input, and you will see that now it is returning 2,4. The only difference is it is now using my polyfill to do that. Okay, so we are done with 2, we are done with map and filter. Now the only thing that is left is reduce. So let's look at the reduce syntax first. So what reduce needs is a callback function, an initial value, and it will also receive a this arg as well, which is not there inside this example, but just understand that it receives a callback function and an initial value. Okay, so the initial value, whatever I pass over here, that becomes the value of the accumulator over here, and that's how my function would work, right? So and notice the syntax of the callback function as well. So unlike map and filter, the callback function is now taking 2 arguments over here, which is accumulator value, and if you go on adding more arguments, it would also receive index and the array itself. Okay, which I'm not adding in this particular example, but in my polyfill we'll add that as well. Okay, so very simple. It takes an input of a callback function and an initial value. So let's go ahead and write our polyfill. So we will write array dot prototype dot my reduce is equal to function. Okay, it takes callback, it takes an init value, right, and it will take this arg as well. Okay, now what is the operational thing that reduce does? So the operation wise, what reduce does is whatever the initial value is there, that has to be assigned to the accumulator. Okay, so we will create an accumulator and assign our initial value to it in the first run, right? So in the first at the first statement itself, we will set our accumulator to point to our initial value. Next, what all we need is index equal to 0 and our length is equal to this dot length. Okay, so our initial stuff is ready. Now we need to loop over these things. So while index less than length, okay, and of course we will write index plus plus and return. Now unlike map and filter, reduce returns a value rather than an array. So filter and map, they return an array, while reduce result will return an reduced form of the input. So it can be a number, it can be anything, whatever I try to reduce it to. So for my case, I'll just return the accumulator over here. Okay, so all I need to do inside my while loop is, so whatever is the return value from the first iteration, that will become the accumulator for my second iteration, right? So that's what we are going to do now. So we'll write accumulator equal to callback dot call this arg. Okay, and my value is now, so the callback is going to receive the values in this way. So it needs a accumulator, it needs the element itself, then index, and then the array, right? So the way we are going to write that is, it is going to take the first argument as accumulator, then the value itself, which is this of index, then the index, and then my array itself. Okay, so whatever we initialize the accumulator with whatever the init value we passed, right? So whatever the init value we passed, we initialize our accumulator with that. So when this particular function is called, our accumulator value is 0, and the value of my that is, this value is going to be the first element of my array. Okay, so 0 plus 1 is going to be returned from this particular function, because that's what we are doing over here. So we are doing 0 plus 1, and whatever the return value is, that has to become the value of the accumulator for my second iteration. So that's what will happen over here. So 0 plus 1, that is the return value which is assigned to the accumulator again. And when the loop, when the second iteration happens, this will basically, when the second iteration happens, the accumulator now has the value as 1, and that is what is going to be supplied over here. And hence the operational stuff of reduce is going to work fine, right? So I think this should work fine. So let's just build our script again, and once it is built, we will head back to our React component and update my reduce. Okay, so all of these functions that I had written inside my handle blur are all now using my polyfill. So let's go to our browser and see if it is working fine. So exactly what I expected. So the result of my reduce is also working fine. Let's give a few more values and see if everything is fine. And you can see the sum of first 10 natural numbers is going to be 55. That's what we have here. All the filter results are all even values. That's what we expected. All of these are multiplied by 20 because this dot data value is 10, and we are multiplying by 2 as well, so 20. So once you multiply all of these values by 20, this is what we are going to get. So all my polyfills are now working perfectly fine. So this is how you can write the polyfills of an array. It depends on the interviewer. If they expect you to write a recursive solution, please go ahead and write the recursive solution. And if you want my help in writing the recursive solution, let me know in the comments. I will probably write a gist and share it in the comments itself. So that's all for this one, guys. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please like and share this video with your friends and colleagues, and to also let YouTube know that you enjoy watching my content. And while you're here, please hit the subscribe button as well, and hit the notification bell to get notified about my videos whenever I upload them. So see you in the next one. Bye.